Welcome to a busted play. An illegal use of hands to the face short. Hayden, there was a ton of player movement and player news this weekend. We record these on Monday. This is coming out on Wednesday. So it's going to be, a little mixed around here when what we're talking about. Might be some old stuff here. Well, it's definitely going to be old stuff. But I just want to cover everything that happened this weekend.
Okay, Hayden, let's
Starting
go.
off starting off with the lesser news, I guess. So first things first. Sam Hubbard, he got an extension with the Bengals. So now they have their bookend white defensive ends. So now they're really ready to dominate the AFC North. Uh, what do you think that?
Yeah, that's a good thing that they re-signed him. However, I still can't believe that they decided to pay Trey Hendrickson. And that's really not saying anything about Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard, good extension. I really don't understand giving up Carl Lawson to replace him with Trey Hendrickson. Just from what I saw last season, Carl Lawson was a significantly better player. But Trey Hendrickson, I think, is a wee bit younger, so that's probably why they went that direction.
Mm-hmm. Uh, the Eagles signed Steven Nelson, who tweeted like a couple days ago before the signing got announced. He's like, "Big news coming tonight," and then he ended up like deleting his whole Twitter after that. So I thought that was pretty funny. Uh, but he signs with the Eagles now. It gives the Eagles a much needed shot in the arm for their secondary and just that team as a whole getting any talent in the door.
Yeah, that's a good one. That secondary was really weak, just in terms of what I remember going back to the draft and looking at what positions they could potentially go to. Corner was definitely a spot we felt they could go even like early in the draft. Receiver was even more needy, but that doesn't mean corner was any less needy. It was a very,
Yeah.
very tough position, and honestly, in terms of it being a passing league nowadays, that's why we talk about the Eagles being. We're just guessing the Eagles won't have such a hot year because when it's a pass-heavy league and you're lacking at the position that catches the ball and the guys that cover the guys who catch the ball, that's really not a good combination.
Yeah. Uh, the Vikings signed D.D. Westbrook. Not that there's really much to say about that, but the Vikings get more guys to throw the ball to. Like you said, it's a pass-happy league, and if you have more guys to throw the ball to, and maybe it helps out the return game too.
I'm a Chad BB kind of guy, so that doesn't affect my
Oh,
perspective.
all right. Uh, BB over DD.
Yeah.
All right. Now in player news in general. Now I think we covered all the extensions and the signings here. Chandler Jones is requesting a trade from the Arizona Cardinals.
Are we onto something thinking that this coaching staff is just really lackluster? Or even the players thinking that now? Because just thinking
Well,
about
not JJ Watt.
the fact that they were able to pull in JJ Watt this offseason would make you think, oh, okay, well, he's a smart guy. He has to realize what it's like. He must be able to realize like he could have went almost anywhere this offseason. And yeah, money, but I don't think that's that big of a deal to him at this point. I mean, I feel like he's made a ton, and I feel like he makes a ton from endorsements too, just being the guy he is, right? Um,
Mm,
so I don't think that would be too big of a concern. I feel like he would be much more concerned with trying to win. And for whatever reason, he convinced himself that he can go to Arizona and win. Now, is that just because he's been stuck with Bill O'Brien the past few years and,
just
that
anywhere
just,
else.
it's like any other coach would make me feel like it's an improvement? Maybe
I,
that's it, but I feel like Chandler Jones may be like sick of it and kind of maybe that tells us even more about the Cardinals. We're not terribly high on the Cardinals. I think we both kind of have them kind of sitting somewhere in the middle of the road this season, and
mhm.
that that feels more accurate if like you got key contributors for the team that are kind of already basically selling themselves out or saying, "I don't believe in this. I don't think this is going to work this year." I think that tells us maybe all we need to know about the team.
Yeah. I just with the teams that were offering JJ Watt or the news they got out of teams offering JJ Watt. I don't know about the money. Maybe he's just got a type of coaching staff. Maybe he just loves dysfunction. So that's why he picked the Cardinals. I don't know. But Chandler Jones wants out, and there's going to be teams that are calling for him, and I don't know if the Cardinals are going to be forking him over that easily, even though probably should. He's getting up there. I think if you could get something like a third or a second for him, you got to pull the trigger on that immediately.
I don't even think teams would offer that. I'd say a fourth is probably what I'm thinking of. But
All right.
if I offer that, they may just decline and say, no, he's too good for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough, and I mean, I do like what Chandler Jones is doing because I don't like the Cardinals very much, and if he wants to get out of there and compete, I think the right move is for him to find a way out of Arizona.
Yeah.
Moving from one dysfunctional franchise to another in the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson is now showing up to training camp because the NFLPA agreed to one of the worst deals I've seen the NFLPA agree to yet, and that players get fined $50K a day for holding out of training camp, which is ridiculous. How do you agree to that? That is so bad. But they agreed to it, and he's showing up now, so he's going to be holding in, I guess, and not holding out. He's going to be showing up and not doing anything. And he said he's still seeking a trade, and the Texans now have kind of opened the doors to trading him. So it's going to be exciting to see where he ends up, if he ends up anywhere.
Yeah, with how everything has gone this offseason, it feels like the Texans got to the point where they thought, okay, because we got to the earliest part of the offseason, just going back through this saga, and they were like, we're not going to trade him, he's too good. Then he gets in trouble. And then they're like, we're zipping our mouth shut. Basically, how that played out after that, it seemed like they were going to wait till next season because they're like, oh, he's going to hold out this year. But then once he gets in trouble, he's like, hey, now, since I got in trouble, even though not a good thing, it kind of is forcing the Texans' hand in that they didn't want to get rid of him, but now not only does he not want to be on their team, but they also kind of have a reason to get rid of him. I mean, if everything that's said is true. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, but just with all that on their plate and just how much of a mess they've already been for the past year or so, there may just be like, hey, even if he ends up being fine or whatever, we just want to move on now because this is too much for us to think about even at this time, especially with a new coach and all sorts of changing pieces around the organization. It's probably better to get out from under this now rather than later, especially considering he doesn't want to be on the team. But their plan, it felt like most of this offseason was that, well, he said he wasn't going to show up to training camp, and we were prepared to hang on to him when he didn't come to training camp. Now that it basically flipped on its head, like he still wants to be off the team, but now they don't want him. He's like, well, I'm not going to take the fine anymore. I know you're going to move on from me, but I'm not going to take the fine anymore, and I'm going to come to camp because I don't want to lose my money because of this. And it's just funny how all this is playing out. I mean, I guess when I heard that today, I was like, okay, that makes sense. It's just crazy how all of this has transpired to actually get us to this moment. And my only weird thought about this is like, geez, man, it's gonna be really weird for a team to get their hands on a new franchise quarterback at the beginning of August, basically, because when this video comes out, it'll be the 28th of July, and I'm just guessing we won't have had a trade by then. We could.
Hopefully.
I'd be surprised.
Hopefully this video isn't just really dated by the time it gets out.
I'd be surprised if we do, because that basically means that we got one in the next day. I'd be surprised if that happened, but it's going to be really interesting to see if he gets on a new team, how quickly he can get comfortable with a new offense. Basically in a month. He's got until September 12th, basically,
if
with whatever
NFL
team he goes into. Yeah, and they don't.
If the NFL
don't
doesn't
put him on
suspend
the exempt. No, they're not suspending him. He would be on the commissioner's exempt list. Which may as well be a suspension, but I mean that's a completely different.
It's
topic,
just
honestly.
it's a suspension until Goodell says like, okay, you can play now. That's all that it is.
It's terrible actually because it's like a suspension, you're right. But then, if somehow it's proven that he did something wrong, then there will also be a suspension on top of it. So it's like, if this stuff doesn't get figured out for 16 weeks of the season, and then he doesn't play at all this year, and right after the season ends, it gets figured out, then he'll get his suspension at that point, and that'll tack, and then he'll get like what, let's say he gets a 2-game suspension for whatever happened, and then that gets tacked on there, and it's like, well, he actually just had an 18-game suspension for what happened, and that's why the commissioner's exempt list can be kind of wild, because it's not like we'll backtrack and count those as missed games. It's that this is just time that you can't play, and your suspension is going to happen in the future. We just don't want you on the field because of like public opinion being swayed in any manner at all until the future.
Yeah, I mean, I saw, now this probably isn't real, but I saw like what the Texans are asking for, and they're asking for 5 high round draft picks, probably a first or second round draft pick, and then 3 top end players from a team.
It's very funny it's very funny what you catch, from my perspective, what you catch coming out as like news from like NFL insiders in what you believe and what you don't believe. You say some other stuff that I'm like, that's just garbage. Looking at the Texans, no, I'm thinking that's the truth. I'm guessing that they probably want 3 first-round picks with like 2 second-rounders on top of that, and then 3 players.
Quarterback back.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're hoping they can get. I'm guessing they'd be willing to settle for less than that, but they really want to. They definitely pushed that idea out there to try to gauge people's interest, because you want your first offer to be way too high. You don't want your first offer
to be absurd.
You don't want it to be way too low. And if they can get that, they will happily take it. The thing is you want to talk about what I actually think they could get. I think that based off what we've seen other teams trade for much less significant players, not in terms of like talent, but positionally, just what they actually would be able to change for your team. Like what you can get for someone like Jalen Ramsey, who's a great player, but he's not a quarterback. A quarterback's a completely different story. If you can get 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey, you absolutely should be able to get 3 first-rounders and 2 second-rounders for Deshaun Watson. The thing is that in all reality, I believe that you can get that. But if you want to pile players on top of that, I don't think they're going to be upper tier level players like they were describing they wanted. If they're getting players, they're going to be like pretty low on the roster type guys, like below like the 30th best player on the team.
I don't know. I think because I also saw that the Dolphins are in the front running for it. Two is gone, and that maybe Jeremy Grant goes there too for tossing a receiver with it.
Xavier Howard.
Oh yeah, geez, get way more bang for your buck then.
Yeah. I think, but with what you just said, I added the third guy, but the 2 players you picked, I would argue that they're both below 30th most talented on that roster.
Okay.
So, they're not. I mean, maybe Jakeem Grant is a little higher, but I think 2 is below 30 with what we saw from him. I really don't think he's that high. At least at this
I agree
point
with
in
that.
time.
I'm trying to think about how the Dolphins view him, though.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if the Texans called me up and I'm the Dolphins GM, like, yeah, we'll give you Deshaun Watson, but we want these picks in Tua. Like, yeah, sure. Here.
How many picks do the Dolphins have this year? They've been really good at stockpiling. Do they have a good number this season?
Got at least 2 first-round picks this year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So, I mean, that's a really helpful thing.
They have the stockpile to do it.
Well, I mean, it's not the stockpile issue. It's how far into the future you're mortgaging. Because if you have 2 picks this year, that means that you don't have to give up 2021 through 2023. That means that you just have to give up 2021 and 2022. Which, I don't know how that sounds to you, but to me, that's much more attractive.
That's way better than 21, 22, and 23.
Even though I have to give up 2 this year, I just like the idea of having a first-round pick down the road, so I have an option at that point. I don't feel obligated based off a decision I made 3 years earlier. But I feel like we basically hit everything, right? There's Nothing much else that happened, but a good roundup there.
Rogers said that he's coming back. That's really the last thing.
I mean,
Which the saga has ended. Him and Devontae Adams posted their last dance pictures, so this might be it. This might be it. The last time we see those two guys play together will be this season. Maybe your prediction's right, and they just break every single QB receiver record in the book with receptions, yards, touchdowns between them.
yeah, I hope that's true, but also I hope at the same time that because he's forcing him the ball, it even though the yardage and touchdowns and all that is insane, the team just is like trash because they're not trying to spread the ball around at all. They just go 9-8, just so I can have my record prediction and my insane statistical prediction right as well. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
All right. You all set?
Yep. I think we could cut it here.